Okay, let's dive in. Today, we're stepping away from maybe the more theoretical stuff and getting our hands dirty. We're looking at this fascinating intersection of really traditional rural work and immediate, almost high-pressure commerce.
That's right. And the source material we have is just phenomenal for this. It's this incredibly detailed, very conversational transcript. It basically walks us through the entire, and I mean grueling process of draining a wild mud pond.
Wow.
Yeah, she's capturing everything that comes out of that sludge and then bam, flipping instantly to selling that exact harvest at a local countryside market. It's quite the sequence.
The level of detail sounds amazing. Like you really get a feel for the operations, not just, what they caught, but the how, the tactics, the sheer physical effort, and crucially, the money side, how that biomass turns straight into cash.
Absolutely. And that's really our mission with this deep dive, isn't it? We want to use this transcript almost like a case study. We're pulling out the logistics, the techniques, the economics, really trying to understand the effort involved.
And then comparing that effort directly to the money they made, like hours later.
Exactly. It's a fantastic window into how these very localized traditional economies actually work on the ground level. It's very direct.
Yeah, it sounds less like just a fishing story and more like an operational breakdown. Risk, labor, cash flow, all rolled into one muddy day. So where do we start? The beginning, I guess. The planning phase.
Right. So the initial chat in the transcript seems pretty casual. Someone just says they're going hunting.
Hunting, okay.
Yeah, but it quickly zeroes in on this specific pond nearby, the Ego. But what's interesting is that the preparation details show it's not just like a random dip in a wild pond. There's clearly been some thought, maybe even investment beforehand.
Ah, I saw that bit. The detail about feeding the fish, that stood out to me. Someone was actively giving them corn, emgo.
And the husks, vax, specifically mentioned too.
Right, so that's deliberate. That's not just random chance.
Precisely. It suggests, at least a basic form of cultivation or maybe intensive baiting. You're putting in resources, the corn costs something, the time to feed them.
You're trying to concentrate the fish, make them easier to catch when the time comes?
Yeah, condition them, maybe fatten them up a bit, get them used to that spot. It's a way to manage the risk. Instead of draining a pond and hoping for the best, you've kind of stacked the deck in your favor to maximize the return on all that hard drainage work later. It's smart, actually.
Okay, so that's the prep. Then the logistics. How do they actually manage the water? The big thing mentioned is this large yellow canvas, or tarp. The but. Why is something so, low-tech, like a tarp, so central here?
That tarp is basically their main tool for control. As the water level drops, the fish panic, they'll try to scatter, head for the deepest spot, hide in the edges. So the tarp does a couple of things. First, it helps kind of funnel the fish, concentrates them into one area where they're easier to grab. And second, it helps direct the water flowing out, maybe stabilizes the muddy banks around the drain point, stops everything collapsing into a mess.
And the instructions for using it were really specific. I remember reading that, something about yellow color on top and really pulling it tight onto the bank, the thon.
Yes, that tightness is key. They mentioned using multiple loops to get That means contraction, tightness. Think about it. When that muddy water starts rushing out, the shifting mud puts a lot of pressure on whatever's holding it back.
Right, the whole thing could just give way.
Exactly. If that tarp slips or buckles, you've lost control. Fish escape, the mud flows wrong. The whole day's effort could be wasted. So getting it really taut, really secure, is critical engineering, even if it looks simple.
And they already knew they needed a decent vehicle, right? The transcript mentions their car, the banks, could hold more than your small car. That tells you something about the expected haul.
It definitely signals the scale they're anticipating. This isn't just catching a few fish for dinner. It's a commercial operation. They're planning for significant volume, needing serious transport capacity, even before they've seen a single fish.
Sets the stakes pretty high from the outset. They've already put in time, baiting, effort, setting up this tarp contraption, sorted out transport. Now everything depends on actually getting the water out.
Which brings us to that first big physical challenge, finding and opening the drain. This seems like where that deep local knowledge really comes into play. Finding the drain hole, the ho kustung thought nook.
Why rely on just knowing where it is? Why not have, a permanent pipe or something?
Well, that's a good point. But in these traditional, maybe more rural settings, building permanent infrastructure is expensive. Might be overkill if the pond is only drained occasionally and if the people doing it know the pond.
So it's just more efficient to rely on memory and experience.
Often, yeah. They're looking for a channel, maybe natural, maybe dug out years ago and now covered in silt. The transcript says the drain is hosao, a bit deep, so it's not obvious, it's buried. Takes effort to even find it.
And the sign that they got it right wasn't just water starting to flow.
No, it was the bubbles.
Yeah.
Seeing water bubbles coming up, that's the confirmation. That tells them the seal, the plug of mud, or whatever was blocking it has been broken. Gravity is taking over. The drainage has started for real. It means that initial, tough digging, even though it was deep and muddy, actually worked. The main event can begin.
Okay, so they've got the drain open, bubbles are coming up. But moving from that initial success to actually emptying the pond sounds like where the real grind begins. They hit obstacles almost immediately.
Oh, instantly. You hear the struggle in the transcript. They talk about the suction, the thick mud. It sucks tightly, really. That's the reality of working with heavy, fine silt. It creates this vacuum effect.
So the mud itself fights back.
Yeah, it resists being moved, resists the water flow.
Yeah.
It takes serious physical strength just to shift it, to keep that channel open and widening. You're not just working against water, you're working against geology almost.
And that resistance slows everything down, makes it less efficient. Every bit of progress costs more energy.
Exactly. And on top of that, they had other physical barriers. They mentioned having to clear out a pile of trees, a dung cay that was blocking the way.
Seriously, so they're doing landscaping and heavy lifting too while standing in muck.
Pretty much. It's not just fishing, is it? It's debris removal, channel maintenance, all part of the job before the real harvest can happen.
Right. But once they overcome that and the water level starts to visibly drop, that's when the energy changes, right? From this heavy slog to something more frantic.
Totally. That's the peak moment. The transcript captures that excitement. There are fish jumping already. Kokenye rokihara. The fish know something's wrong. Their environment is shrinking rapidly. They start to panic.
And paradoxically, the catching gets easier as the water gets lower, even though the mud gets thicker.
Yeah, that's what the source says. Once it's shallow, it becomes batlutoi, easy to catch. Why? Because they get makbenuhom chaide.
They get stuck in the mud. Their main advantage, speed, is gone.
Right. They're slowed down, exposed. And that's when we find out what they're primarily catching. The exclamation comes up again and again. Only catfish. Only catfish. Katrekon, katrekon.
Ah, catre. Catfish. Makes sense, given the muddy bottom and the baiting.
Exactly. Catfish are perfectly suited to that kind of environment. They thrive in low-oxygen, muddy water. It confirms the harvest is focused on the species best adapted to this pond.
So the technique shifts from just draining to actively grabbing them, using hands, feet.
Yeah, scooping them up, cornering them. They mentioned chandung blocking the fish's path, trying to anticipate where they'll bolt in the shallows. But the fish still have instincts.
They try to hide.
Oh, yeah. They head for any cover left. The transcript mentions them going into underwater crevices, sanum, or burying themselves in clumps of grass or bushes, the buoy cod.
So the workers have to physically root around in those spots, sticking their hands into muddy holes and thickets.
That's exactly it. It's not just scooping from the open mud anymore. It's targeted searching in these hiding places. Adds another layer of effort, and probably risk, too.
But that searching pays off sometimes, right? They found those concentrated spots, the nests.
Yes. And the transcript gives us numbers right away. One spot yielded 5 or 6 fish. Boom, boom, boom. Quick return.
And then a bigger one?
Yeah. Later they found another that had 9 fish. And significantly, those 9 were described as being good for meat halibut.
Okay, so that detail matters. It means these clusters weren't just lots of fish, but good quality, valuable fish. Confirms the whole draining strategy can yield these high-density pockets.
Definitely. But the overall picture is still one of, organized chaos. Constantly scooping, finding fish, and immediately this is emphasized, getting them into buckets.
Gotta secure the catch quickly before it wriggles away.
Right. You find a fish or a whole nest, you grab it, bucket, move on. It's nonstop high-speed work, pure physical output.
So most of the work is this intense, muddy battle with catfish, but the transcript highlights a few moments that break that routine, finding things that are different, either much more valuable or much more dangerous. Tells you a bit about what else lives in that pond.
Absolutely. The biggest surprise, and probably the most valuable single item, seems to be the giant turtle, the rua. The excitement is palpable in the text. Caught the turtle right away. Maduk Luna.
And they described it as tu lumchesi.
Yeah.
Very big. That's not just another fish, is it? That's like a bonus prize.
Oh, absolutely. A large turtle like that would likely fetch a much higher price than the equivalent weight in catfish. It could potentially make a huge difference to the day's total earnings. It shifts the game a bit.
How so?
Well, you're not just harvesting a commodity anymore, the catfish. You're also treasure hunting, hoping for these rare, high-value finds like the turtle as an element of jackpot potential. But even the catfish got huge.
Right. They mentioned some real monsters hiding in the bushes. One was described as Tidupthanae, so big and beautiful.
And handling those giants required different tools. They couldn't just grab them by hand. The source specifically says they needed the net, the scoop, the vet for the really heavy ones.
Makes sense. A big, slippery fish covered in mud would be impossible to hold otherwise.
Especially when you consider the size estimate for one of them. They speculated it might weigh a whole yen.
Okay, you mentioned yen before. Remind us, how much is that?
It's a traditional Vietnamese measure, roughly 15 kilograms.
15 kilos. That's over 30 pounds. For one fish.
Yeah. Imagine trying to wrestle something that size out of thick mud. You absolutely need that vet, not just for the weight, but for control, and probably to avoid getting spined by it too.
Yeah. But not every surprise catch is a welcome one. There was that moment with the unidentified animal, the Congi Dai Ne. That sounded tense.
Extremely tense. The key thing there was the warning. Be careful, it bites. No stanya. And the specific instruction to avoid its head.
Okay, so what could that be? A snake? An eel? A big snakehead fish?
It's hard to say for sure from the text, but the warning points to something aggressive, with a nasty bite. Could easily be a large snakehead known for sharp teeth, or maybe a big eel. Whatever it was, it represented a serious hazard.
And they're dealing with this, remember, basically blind, feeling around in murky water and thick mud. Every time they reach into a clump of grass, they're taking a chance.
Exactly. It highlights the inherent risks in this kind of work. It's not just tiring, it can be dangerous. And even the smaller hazards add up.
Like the fish spines.
Yeah, they mentioned the spines or thorns getting caught in someone's hair. Makvato sounds minor, maybe, but it just paints a picture of how messy and, frankly, unpleasant the work is. You're covered in mud, slime, and potentially getting snagged by sharp bits.
Plus the general filth. They mention needing to wash hands and feet afterwards. It's a reminder of the basic discomfort and hygiene challenges.
And then after all that, after wrestling with mud, fish, trees, turtles, and mystery biters, there's still one last physical hurdle.
Getting the catch out.
Yeah. Transporting those heavy buckets, naingate, full of fish and water, up the slippery, muddy bank of the pond. The weight is proof they succeeded, but it's the final, exhausting step before they can even think about selling. The labor doesn't stop until the fish are literally on the road.
Okay, so now this massive shift. From the intense, dirty, physical work at the pond, suddenly we're at the market. Clean, focused, all about the sale.
It's a really abrupt transition in the transcript, which probably reflects the reality.
Yeah.
They get there and it's straight into sales mode. Fish here, sir. Fish here, ma'am. Karianai. Karichiai.
Direct appeal to passersby. No middleman here.
No, this is direct to consumer. Crucial for maximizing their return on that hard day's labor. And this is where the transcript gets really interesting for us because it gives us actual numbers. We can really dig into the economics.
Yeah, let's break down those transactions. This is the payoff. How much did that effort actually yield in Dong?
Okay, let's look at the first customer mentioned. Transaction 1. They bought 3.5 kilograms. That's 3 kanro.
3.5 kilos, and the price.
Price was initially 143,000 dong, but the seller rounded it down slightly, settled for 140,000.
Okay, 140,000 for 3.5 kilos. So if we do the math, that's exactly $40,000 per kilogram. A nice round number sets a baseline.
Right. Now, transaction 2 was smaller. 2.1 kilograms, and that went for 100,000.
Okay. 100,000 divided by 2.1, that's about $47,600 per kilogram. That's actually more per kilo than the first sale.
Interesting, isn't it? Maybe a slight premium for smaller buys. Or maybe those particular fish look better. It shows the pricing isn't perfectly rigid.
But then the big sales come in. This is where having that large catch really matters, moving volume quickly. Transaction 3. A bulk buy of 12.4 kilograms.
Huge amount. The price was 487,000, but again, a little rounding down, maybe some negotiation. They got 485,000 for it.
Right. So 485,000 divided by 12.4 kilos, that comes out to roughly 39,110 outer per kilogram.
So significantly cheaper per kilo than the small purchase, and even slightly less than the first 40 kilo sale. That confirms a bulk discount is definitely in play.
Makes sense. Move more product, give a slightly better rate. We see that again in transaction 4, right? 6 kilograms.
Is 6 kilos priced at 272,000, rounded to 270,000.
And 270,000 divided by 6 kilos. That's 45,000 per kilogram.
So higher than the big bulk buy, but lower than the really small 2.1 kilogram purchase. Seems like it's a sliding scale. The price per kilo drops noticeably once you buy a larger amount, maybe over 10 kilos or so. That discount really helps the seller clear out their stock fast after such a big harvest.
Okay, but now we need to talk about the outlier, the big one. That single fish, the trophy catch, weighing 8 kilograms, that one sold for $300,000 or 300 and gone.
Yeah, a huge price for a single fish. But let's look at the rate. 300,000 divided by 8 kilograms.
That's only $37,500 per kilogram. Wait a second.
Exactly. That's less per kilogram than the 12.4 kilogram bulk purchase rate, around $39K, and way less than the smaller purchases.
$45K, $47K.
That seems totally backwards. Why would the biggest, most impressive fish sell for the lowest price per kilo?
It's fascinating, isn't it? It forces you to think about market dynamics beyond just weight. Maybe a fish that big is actually harder to sell. Perhaps it's seen as older, tougher meat. Or maybe only certain buyers, like restaurants needing a showpiece, would want one that size, limiting the market.
So the smaller, more standard-sized fish might actually be preferred by regular customers for cooking at home. Could be. It suggests that sheer size doesn't automatically equal premium value per unit of weight in this specific market context. The total cash is high, yes, but the rate is lower. That's a really key insight into the local economy's nuances.
And there was negotiation even on that big fish, right? They asked for a discount, but...
Yes, the transcript mentions a 20,000 Najora reduction was given. So even on the high-value items, haggling is expected and happens. It's all part of the direct market dynamic.
We also had that one isolated price quote, Catraneja 4,000, catfish price 4,000. What do we make of that, given the kilo prices are around 40,000?
That almost certainly has to refer to a much smaller unit. Given the 40 kilogram price, 4,000 again makes perfect sense for 100 grams.
Ah, okay. Like pricing for someone who just wants a tiny amount.
Exactly. It shows they have a standardized price structure that scales down even to very small purchases, based on that core 40,000 per kilogram rate.
And despite these prices, the demand was clearly strong. They had that customer asking for 15 fish.
Yeah, which they efficiently bagged up as 7 and 8 fish. Shows they're handling volume quickly.
And eventually they just ran out.
That's the sign of successes.
Yeah.
The seller has to say, "Ciao head caro aya," basically. Sorry, I'm sold out. Total liquidation achieved. The last sale mentioned was 4.6 kilos for 170,000 DAI.
Let's see, 170,000 divided by 4.6, that's about 36,950 DAI per kilo. Again, on the lower end, reinforcing that pattern for slightly larger purchases.
Yeah. So you see this really efficient cycle. Grueling work in the morning, potentially hazardous, lots of physical output, leading directly to cash in hand at the market by the afternoon. It's the whole engine right there. Hashtag tag outro.
So wrapping this up, what we've really analyzed here is this incredibly compressed cycle. It's a micro study of traditional knowledge meeting direct commerce. It kicks off with huge physical effort, logistical planning based on knowing the land.
Finding the drain, battling that awful mud suction, clearing debris, the chaos of the catch. Right. All that intense input. And it leads directly to an immediate and seemingly quite profitable commercial result right there in the local market. No delays, no complex supply chain.
And for you listening, the real takeaway here is seeing exactly how that physical work translates into money. We saw the pricing wasn't just about total weight. There were these clear tiers.
Yeah, a higher rate per kilo for small amounts, a definite discount for buying in bulk, and then that really interesting negotiated, almost lower rate for the huge specialized trophy fish.
It tells you the profit comes from two streams. The relentless effort of catching sheer volume, the hundreds of standard catfish sold maybe at a lower margin per fish.
That covers the baseline effort, the day's wages, so to speak.
And then the bonus comes from those unpredictable, high-value catches, like that giant turtle. The outliers boost the profit margin significantly.
Definitely. So when you think about the cost, the mud, the spines, the risk from that biting creature, just the sheer exhaustion of lifting and carrying, what does that pricing structure ultimately tell us about how this rural labor is valued?
Well, it seems the biggest fish, that 8-kilogram monster selling at a lower rate per kilo than the average bulk buy, is really telling. It suggests the core economic value isn't in the rare spectacle, but in the efficiency of getting massive amounts of the standard commodity fish out of that pond. Volume is king, even if it's hard won.
Which leads us to a final thought, something for you to consider. This whole intense, high-yield harvest depends entirely on that pond being productive year after year. We know they even feed the fish, invest in the pond's biomass.
Right.
So what does this aggressive, complete drainage model mean for the pond's ecology in the long run? how much recovery time, or maybe even active environmental management is needed between these draining events to make sure there are enough fish and turtles and everything else to make this incredibly demanding process worthwhile again next season. The whole sustainability of this traditional, highly efficient economic cycle really hangs on the unseen health and balance of that muddy ecosystem.